tomorrow I go to a place called the Brain Center, where my daughter and I are going. She has seizures, and they have new groundbreaking technology that hopefully will be able to help her out. I believe technology is remarkable, and it has a bright, bright future in store for all of us. But before we get to certain places, I believe we need to have a debate, because the ethics have never been explored before, ever. The Wall Street Journal recently ran a story about the future of brain implants, where you can have a perfect memory with a chip implanted. You remember the movie Limitless that came out, which kind of did this with drugs?
They say that we can only access 20% of our brain. This lets you access all of it. They've had clinical trials and it's FDA approved.
All right, just out of curiosity, and that's all. I was blind, but now I see.
Okay, amazing, right? Guy takes a pill and now can access 100% of his brain. He can do anything. But there also is a world of danger that we should at least talk about, because it's not a movie anymore and it's not a drug. The technology is coming, and we have to make sure that we're ready. I want to discuss the technology and the questions surrounding it with one of the authors of the article from the Wall Street Journal, Gary Marcus. He's a psychology professor from New York University. Gary, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well.
Good. I'm a friend of Ray Kurzweil's, been watching the coming singularity with great anticipation, both good and bad, for quite some time. And I think it's important to have the debate, and I welcome you to the program, and I'm glad you're here. One of the things I'm concerned with, because there's no doubt, you can stop Parkinson's, let's stop it. You can fix seizures, let's fix them. But one of the things is we're talking about being able to upload memory, being able to enhance thinking. Wouldn't this create a situation to where the wealthiest 1% are way ahead of everybody else?
That's definitely one possible scenario. I'm with you. We need to work these things out now before the technologies are imminent. So it might be 20 years or 40 years before we can really do a brain implant as well as they do in that movie. Maybe it'll be 50. But it is on the horizon, I think. I think it's at least very likely. And we need to think these things through. So, for example, we could hope that maybe the market will drive these things down the way that's driven down cell phones. So cell phones were initially expensive. Only a few people had them. That was 30 years ago. And now everybody has them. Maybe that will happen with brain implants, but maybe it won't. Maybe it'll be something where only a privileged few can afford to get them, and they send their kids to Harvard because they have better memories, and the people who can't afford them can't compete. And so I think as a society, just like you said, we need to start that conversation.
Yeah, and I will tell you that that's what Ray Kurzweil told me when I said, what happens to the people that can't afford it? And he said, no, Glenn, it's like cell phones. You'll be able to afford it. So they're counting on that. But
well, Ray is an optimist, but I think we need to be cautious. I think there's room to think about that optimism, but there's room for pessimistic scenarios, and we want to nudge ourselves to the happy scenarios and away from the sad scenarios.
Right, and because the sad scenarios and some of the things that we could look at with a government or a corporation gone bad. You could really have people in slavery if they couldn't afford the memory chip, because they would be so far advanced.
Well, I don't know if it would be as discrete as that just on memory, but you could also have implants that enhance intelligence as well as memory. Of course, the two are correlated. You could have lots of different kinds of implants, and I think in the end, it's a much bigger difference than a college education might give. Already, college education stratify society. And the more that wealthy could afford implants that other people can't, the more that you're going to have a divergence between those who can afford and those who can't. So I think that is a real issue.
And the real problem.
Another issue.
Go ahead.
Another issue is security. So it's sort of hinted at a little bit, which is if I have a brain implant, I don't want you to be able to hack into it. And so that's another kind of concern we have to look out for.
Can you talk to me at all about that a little bit? Because if I am not free to think and have the right to my own thoughts, we have patents in this country for a reason, and the patents change the world. But there's no patent for my thought. And you know, you don't have to go to brain implants. You can go to Google search, and just with the rudimentary AI, you know, ideas that they would have that are possibly on the horizon in the next 5 to 8 years, where it can really anticipate almost everything that you're thinking. You know, future crimes is one way Minority Report might go, but I'm concerned about, they're my thoughts. I have a right to my own privacy here. I want to be free to think without anybody knowing what I'm thinking.
Well, for now, I think you're on safe ground, because the neuroscience isn't to the point where we could stick an implant in your brain and actually read your thoughts. But in the long term, I think it is possible. Already, in very limited ways, we could interpret your thoughts. So we could put you in a brain scanner and guess which of 10 different things you were thinking. Were you thinking about this kind of scene? Like, were you thinking about a happy scene or a sad scene? It's not very precise, but we could do it if you were willing to sit there in the scanner. The downside long-term risk is if we had something that was inside your skull and had some kind of wireless connectivity and the interface wasn't really, really sound, then maybe somebody could hack in there. And you see what happens, say, when Target loses their credit card numbers. You need to be really, really careful about those things when you start having interfaces in the brain.
Just because we can do things, should we do things?
Well, I think the trade-off here is, as it often is in medicine. So you have things that can help a whole lot of people, but there are risks too. So you could think about human growth hormone, for example. You know, it helps a lot of people, but then people start to abuse it for athletic purposes. And I think that there's every reason in the world to build implants. You were talking about your daughter with seizures, and there's reason to think that deep brain stimulation might help with depression soon. There's some evidence that it might help with memory and so forth. So there's a lot of people that might be helped. There's good reason to think that brain implants might help people that are paralyzed. So there's good reason to build them. But then you do always open the door. Once you have something that can be used for medical purposes, it might be used for enhancement purposes. And from my perspective, there the real issue is about equity and security.
Okay. Gary, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. And as I said earlier on the broadcast, I am a big believer in technology. I'm a big believer in the future. I think the future can be very, very bright. But unless we start to have serious conversations about what is ahead long term and just around the corner. 10 years ago wasn't that long ago now, was it? You weren't getting anything on Facebook 10 years ago. How much are you on Facebook now? How much are you texting? When's the last time you wrote a handwritten letter? The world changes rapidly, and we have to have those conversations before we get there. Back in a